Hey guys. So I'm in the process of kind of reminding myself, I guess, that anger and depression are choices. You kind of choose to feel that way, and that can sound like a sort of contentious statement, like that you choose to feel that way, because a lot of the time it feels like it's inflicted on you through circumstance, and in a sense it is. That's true, and the word choice can be misleading because it makes it sound like it's easy, like you can just snap your fingers and feel okay and feel better. That's all there is to it. I'm gonna have so many fucking bites on me if I stay here. They're all over me, man. So yeah, it makes it feel like it's, something it makes it sound like it's something that's so easy. Like you can just choose to not be annoyed, you can just choose to not be depressed, you can just choose to be happy, and it's not like a simple binary yes or no instantaneous choice like that. It's not that easy. It's a concerted effort most of the time, and often over a long period of time. It's not a thing that you can just do, and it's also something that takes practice, but it's still a choice ultimately. It still exists purely within the realm of your control. I think it's a bit like, for example, if you imagine making a really difficult shot in say basketball, for example. I don't know anything about basketball, but you're on the other side of the court all the way down the one end, and you trying to what do you even call it in basketball? Score a hoop? Trying to whatever it is. Let's go with football. Take an amazing free kick, right? To score a free kick, loop the ball over the wall and score a perfectly placed, accurate and powerful free kick. That's I've got so lost in the weeds of these analogies, but basically that's something that you essentially can't do, right? If you tried to do that, most normal people, you can't do that. You can't score a sort of David Beckham-esque free kick, but if you're awarded the free kick, then only you can, no one else can, and theoretically you can. It's not that you can't do it, it's that being realistic, most probably you don't have the ability to right now, or it would take a lot of work, or you're not really mentally prepared to do it, or you don't have the confidence to do it. But essentially, in theory, you could do that. If you took that free kick 1,000,000 times, one of those 1,000,000 times you might just score an absolute belter. So it is within your capabilities to do it. But it would be unreasonable for someone to go, just fucking score the free kick, stop being a dick, score the free kick, because it would be so difficult for you. But it's still possible. You can still score the free kick. And if it's you who's awarded it, no one else can do it for you, So the only person who can do it is you, and this act exists purely within the realm of what you do or don't end up doing, and ultimately that comes down to choice. So in the same sense, if something horrific happens to you, how you feel about that is a choice, but it might be an almost impossible choice. It might be a choice where the 99.99999% probability is you're going to feel a certain way about that. And so from that point of view, in effect, it's not really a choice, but it's still really useful to remember at other times that it is a choice. I know it sounds like I'm talking complete shit here, but just bear with me. Like, you know, let's say you have a kid and your kid dies, right? There's no point someone telling you it's a choice, you know, you don't need to feel upset. Like, you'd want to kill them. It would just be such a pointless and stupid thing to say at that moment, and it wouldn't really be a choice in that moment, you know, unless you're like a psychopath. If your kid dies, you're going to feel terrible. But let's say you get fired, for example, right? That's less of an innate thing, and for most people, getting fired is a disaster. Obviously, losing your job is horrible, and it's something that's deserving of like sympathy. Or going through a divorce, for example, you know, very traumatic and stressful thing for most people. But in a situation like that, it can be useful to remember that it's a choice, and even then it's a very difficult choice. I mean, you'd have to be immensely well sort of mentally trained and developed to get fired and just like not care. Divorce, you might be happy about getting divorced. To be fair, a lot of people fucking love getting divorced, but you know, I don't think people enjoy the proceedings, but I think they enjoy the end result. But yeah, I mean, getting fired, you know, for example, from a job you care about and that you depend on, it would be very hard to just not care. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible in the way that it would be to not care about, you know, for example, like your child dying or something. And it's like a muscle that can be exercised. It's like a thing that can be trained, like free kicks or throwing a basketball, whatever you call it. It's good to remember that. It's important to remember that, I think. It's not a nice thing to remind people of, you know. It's not depending on the context, you know, it's not really it can be a sort of insulting thing to say to somebody in many contexts, but it can be a very useful thing to say to yourself. Like, ultimately it's a choice. And sometimes I have that thought when I'm like really angry or depressed, and I think like, this is a choice, and then I think, well, it's not, because I'm still angry. It is a choice. I'm choosing to be. And sometimes I'm wedded to that. Like I want to. I mean, it's not just a choice. It's like, I mean, it's like an active choice. You know, like the other day, yesterday, I was really sort of angry and stressed out, and I was like, right, I'm going to meditate. And I sat down. I put the timer on, and within like a minute, I was like, this fucking bastard, what does this fucking person think they are? And I started like seething with rage, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not meditating. I'm gonna go and fucking do something. I can't fucking sit here. And so in that moment, I was really making a choice. Like, that really was a choice, and probably not even that difficult of a choice. Just a choice in which I was too weak-willed to make the better choice. I wasn't well trained enough. I wasn't experienced enough in that situation, and I just made the wrong choice. I made the choice in that moment to go and, you know, fester and whatever, and to be angry. So in that situation, yeah, that wasn't even like, you know, an against the odds free kick. That was like a Sunday league free kick against, you know, like a fat goalkeeper who's hungover, and I just looked at the ball and I was like, nah, and I just picked it up and fucking ran off, you know. Had a tantrum. That's that really is a choice. So I guess what I'm saying is, technically, you know, theoretically, it's always a choice. Some cases it's not really. I think it's unrealistic to expect people to just overcome their emotions in an instant, regardless of the weight of them. But I think it's fair in situations like I was in, you know, when I went to meditate, to expect better from myself, to expect better, just to expect, you know, myself to say, hey, I should probably, for the sake of being like better to be around and just being a more functioning person, I should probably like persevere with this. It's a 10-minute meditation, and the whole point of it is to, you know, be less angry. So if I just get up angrily, I'm really defeating the purpose of it. And I think I can expect, or I should expect, that level of commitment from myself. So I'm thinking out loud here, partially because it's an important thing to remember, you know, for myself. Yeah, what else? Yeah, I saw a good comment on Reddit the other day about anger, and it was about how, you know, you should split it into different emotions, because it's rarely just anger. It's usually a lot of things at once, and I found that to be very helpful as well. Like, for example, the example this commenter gave was if someone like cuts you off in traffic. Not that I would fucking know, so I've got my license. I dream of the day someone cuts me off in traffic. If someone cuts you off in traffic, you go into a rage, right? And like, you just think like, this fucking person cut me off. Well, probably not. It's probably one, this is with the examples this person gave, I don't remember exactly, I'm paraphrasing it, but one is like, you know, you're actually very scared. You're scared for your life. You're scared that this person could have killed you. You're angry that they were just being reckless in general. You're also angry they were being reckless around you specifically. You're also angry that they drove off and you didn't get to say anything. And, you know, perhaps you're sort of hurt and sad by the possibility of what could happen and what might happen to somebody else. And you know, there's a lot of different emotions there. It's not just like, oh, some prick cut me off, I'm furious. Like, there's a lot of different emotions, and a lot of the time when you are angry, yeah, like a lot of the time there's a lot of shame and fear, and I think anger and humiliation are closely linked, and obviously anger is quite like an egoic emotion. So for me, that's a big part of it. A lot of the time I feel diminished, you know, by situations or people or people's actions. I feel kind of like, diminished or sort of threatened by them, and ultimately like kind of bad about myself. But it's much easier to be angry. It's quicker, it's more readily available, and it diverts attention away from what's really sort of deeply hurting you. Because I don't think most of the time, unless you've been a victim of something particularly infuriating, I don't think most of the time anger is a very deep emotion. I think it's quite a surface level emotion. It's one that we sort of grab for, you know. I think deeper emotions, I think like fear can be a deeper emotion than anger, and I think sadness, you know, and sort of longing and things like that, they usually are, I think, deeper emotions than anger. And I think anger can be a substitute for those things, or a way of avoiding thinking about or feeling them, because a lot of things that we do with our egos, a lot of the things our egos do, rather, I should say, a lot of our egoic responses to things are a way of protecting us from things we don't want to think about or feel or acknowledge. You see it a lot if you ever deal with a very narcissistic person and you point out maybe an inconsistency in their behaviour, or you know, some sort of wrongdoing on their part, and the moment they don't have a response for it, or they're almost forced to confront this, immediately they lash out in fury. It's a very common reaction because their ego is in like hyperdrive, so it's it's really trying to protect them from something, and I think it's trying to protect them from some very strong feeling of like fragility. That's kind of like an oxymoron, but like a pungent, powerful feeling of it's not a powerful feeling of fragility, is it? A feeling of fragility. Let's just leave it there. It's trying to protect them from that. Because I think usually at some point when they were being sort of formed emotionally, a lot of the time anyway, I think some people are just dicks, but a lot of the time they were in some way made to feel extremely vulnerable or challenged or threatened, and or over repeated, a long period of time, repeated incidents, and it just becomes a defense mechanism to go into sort of narcissism and anger and lashing out. And I think all of us have that in us to some degree. It's not a thing that only they do, it's just more pronounced. To be honest, I don't really believe in the idea of like a narcissist and a non-narcissist, because most of us are pretty fucking narcissistic, like especially these days, Jesus. But I think always, really, like people are, almost all of us, I'd say, are like surprisingly self-involved at times. Not always, not in every respect, but all you know is yourself. All you really know is yourself. It's hard not to think a lot about yourself. Of course, that changes when you have like family members you care about, kids and stuff. But still, even then, people aren't always angels in their sort of family lives. And I think most the traits that, when we say someone is a narcissist or someone else is not a narcissist, like we all kind of have those traits to varying degrees, and even amongst people who would qualify, for being diagnosed as being narcissists, like there's a huge spectrum even within that. I mean, I think that this binary interpretation of it, this very literal sort of binary interpretation of it, I think is kind of wrong. I think it's like a trait. I don't think it's a person. I don't think you can say a person is that as a noun. Well, it can be a noun, but a noun of a trait that they possess, rather than a noun of who and what they are in its entirety. But anyway, geez, I've killed like so many snails just now. I can't. I'm not trying to. Oh my god. Okay, now these are actually shells of something. I did stand on a bunch of snails back there on my bike the other day as well. When it's raining, they all cross the road. I was on my bike and I was like, what are these fucking noises? Is this glass going in my tyres or something? And then I realised I just killed about 10 snails on the way up the path, because for some reason they all cross the road when it's raining. Yeah. So yeah, that's all really. I'm keeping half an eye on my surroundings here, because there's this dog in this area this dog that frequents this area with its owner. It doesn't just walk around by itself. It's not a vagrant. That fucking hates me. I had an argument with its owner once, and it's like the biggest dog I've ever seen. It's one of those like livestock dogs. It's like those I forget what they're called. There's like Turkish ones. I think they're Turkish. Anatolian Shepherd. I thought it was one of those. Apparently not. But it is huge, like absolutely huge. And I had an argument with its owner once, and this dog, it's not only the size of an elephant, but it has the memory of one. And just like every time it sees me, it goes berserk. She always has it on a really loose collar. And when someone's like trying to hold their dog back and you see the collars like out here, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man, this dog could kill me. Like, I would rather fight like a fighting dog than a huge one, like I wouldn't want to fight any of them, but I would fancy my chances more even against like a quite tough pit bull than like one of these massive ones. I just wouldn't know what to do. I guess they're not that agile, they don't have the best balance. You could use that to your advantage, but I just feel like if it just got on me, like it pounced on me, oh man, it's big. It's like a bear. Like it's literally like a bear, and it's sort of ruined this area for me, because every time it sees me, it's like here whenever I'm fucking here, and it goes mental. From like far away, like crazy. Anyway, yeah, that's all really. I've been just thinking about this stuff, and still trying to work on it, because I can say all of this in a video, and then suddenly I just find myself like consumed by these feelings. And I realized it with anxiety a long time ago. I realized like it was a very eye-opening experience for me, a very eye-opening change, I guess, or I don't know, whatever. When I sort of realized, you know, I was probably my like most of my 20s, from probably like 16 to like 26 or whatever, probably not coincidentally the times when I was like smoking the most weed, but I don't think it's just that, because I know a lot of people who were very similar who didn't smoke weed. But that period was really defined by anxiety for me, like very intense anxiety, sometimes verging on panic. And at a certain point I realized, sorry, I got a fucking annoying notification there. At a certain point I realized like that it was a choice. Perhaps it was a choice is the wrong wording. It's almost inflammatory, because there were factors that made it, you know, very difficult not to feel that way. But I realized it was in my hands, I guess, and that doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it was easy, but when I realized that, when I learned that, and I guess the most important thing is when I accepted that, when I stopped blaming the world for how I felt. I can blame the world for the world, I can blame people for their actions, I can blame, you know, people when they do something wrong, but my feelings are sort of my responsibility for the most part. And when I realized that with regards to anxiety, like that was the beginning of it really getting a lot better. And I wouldn't really say anxiety is a big part of my life anymore. It is mostly like anger, really. Depression isn't a big thing for me either. It has been like the last few days, because, you know, had some bad news in the family and stuff, and that's been giving me that feeling again, you know, where it's like hard to do anything. It's hard to motivate yourself to just get through the day. It's hard to move sometimes. It's hard to even like wake up your brain, you know, sometimes when you're depressed about something. But it's not a thing I'm afflicted by all the time in normal circumstances, and nor is anxiety. They both used to be. So now it's a case of doing that with anger. The problem is with it being, as I mentioned earlier, such an instantaneously available emotion and such a kind of rapid fire emotion, it doesn't give you much time to think. When you're depressed, you have all the time in the world to think. You know, you're lying down in bed and you're depressed, and you have this time and space to think about it. And the same with anxiety. Usually it's like gnawing away at you all day, so you can talk to yourself, which was a really useful thing for me, for like talking to myself in my head, and talking it through. Anger, you don't get as much opportunity to do that, but you can do it before and after. And yeah, that's what I need to do more, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.